In the summer of 2015, Sam, a long-haul truck driver, was driving down an empty stretch of Highway 99 in California late at night. The air was thick with fog, and the only sound was the hum of his engine. Sam was used to the loneliness of the road, but something about that night felt off. As he rounded a bend, he spotted a woman standing on the shoulder. She wore a long white dress that billowed in the faint breeze, and her long black hair obscured her face. Concerned, Sam slowed down and pulled over. "Are you okay?" he called out, stepping out of his truck. The woman didn't respond. She just stood there motionless. Sam cautiously approached her, but as he got closer, he noticed something was wrong. Her feet were bare and bloodied, and her arms hung limply by her sides. "Ma'am?" he asked again, his voice trembling. This time she turned her head to face him. Her eyes were hollow black pits, and her mouth stretched into an unnatural, toothy grin. Before Sam could react, she let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the fog. Sam bolted back to his truck, heart racing. He jumped into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut, fumbling to start the engine. As he drove away, the scream continued to echo in his ears, sending chills down his spine. As he sped down the highway, Sam couldn't resist the urge to glance in his rearview mirror. What he saw made his blood run cold. The woman was now standing in the middle of the road, her black, empty eyes fixed on him. She didn't move, but her presence felt suffocating even from a distance. Sam drove for hours without stopping, unable to shake the image of her face. The rest of the night, he kept his headlights on high and avoided looking at the shadows along the road. Days later, still haunted by the encounter, Sam shared his story with other truckers at a rest stop. To his shock, many of them nodded knowingly. "You saw her too," one of them said grimly. "She's been out there for years," another added. "They say she was killed in a hit-and-run decades ago. Drivers left her there to die, and now she haunts the highway, looking for someone to take her with them." Sam never drove on Highway 99 again, but even as he avoided that stretch of road, he couldn't escape the memory of the woman on the shoulder and her piercing, hollow stare. Lena was driving home from a late-night college party on a deserted highway. The road stretched endlessly, flanked by dark woods, and the faint glow of her headlights barely penetrated the inky blackness. She hadn't seen another car for miles when she spotted him, a lone hitchhiker standing by the side of the road. He looked young, maybe in his early 20s, wearing a torn hoodie and jeans. Lena hesitated, but the alcohol in her system made her bold. Against her better judgment, she pulled over. "Need a ride?" she asked as the man approached. "Yeah, thanks," he replied, sliding into the passenger seat. His voice was calm, almost too calm. Lena started driving again, but as the man settled in, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up her spine. The hitchhiker was oddly talkative, asking Lena one question after another. At first they were harmless. "Where are you headed? What do you study?" But soon his questions became unsettling. "So Lena," he said, turning to face her, "how's Max doing?" Lena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "How do you know my dog's name?" The man chuckled, his grin widening. "It's a small world, isn't it? And your sister, Emily. She's starting high school soon, right?" Lena's chest tightened in fear. There was no way this stranger could know such personal details about her. Her heart raced as she tried to keep calm. "You must be mistaken," she said, forcing a laugh. "I don't have a sister." The hitchhiker's grin faded, replaced by a cold stare. "You shouldn't lie to me, Lena. It's rude." Panic gripped her. She wanted to pull over and kick him out, but the road was empty. and the dark woods seemed to close in on her. "You know," he said, leaning closer, "you shouldn't pick up strangers. Some of us are dangerous." Lena slammed on the brakes, her tires screeching. "Get out," she screamed, pointing at the door. The man didn't move. Instead, he leaned back in his seat, smiling. "You'll regret this." In the blink of an eye, the hitchhiker disappeared. The seat was empty and the car suddenly felt freezing cold. Lena's mind raced. She drove home as fast as she could, locking every door and window behind her. She barely slept that night, her dog Max barking at shadows that weren't there. The next morning, she found claw marks etched into the passenger side door of her car. Scrawled in the dirt on the window were 3 chilling words: "See you soon." For weeks, Lena lived in fear, constantly looking over her shoulder. She never saw the hitchhiker again, but she always felt his presence, as though he was waiting, watching, for the right moment to return. In 1998, a group of friends, Mark, Sarah, and Dylan, were returning from a road trip through Texas. Tired of the long drive, they decided to take an unmarked shortcut through the desert. The highway was eerily quiet, with no other vehicles in sight. As the sun set, the vast desert was engulfed in darkness, and the road seemed to stretch endlessly. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Sarah asked nervously, glancing at the GPS, which had lost its signal hours ago. "Relax," Mark said from the driver's seat, forcing a grin. "It's just a straight road. We'll hit the main highway soon." As night fell, the headlights of a convoy of black SUVs appeared in the distance, speeding in their direction. The friends watched in silence as the vehicles approached, their headlights dim and their movement unnervingly synchronized. "What the hell?" Dylan muttered. Mark slowed the car, pulling slightly to the side to let the SUVs pass. But as they got closer, the convoy abruptly vanished. One moment, the SUVs were there, and the next, the road was empty. "Did you see that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Mark gripped the wheel tighter, his knuckles white. "Yeah, but we're not stopping." Minutes later, the car engine sputtered and died. The lights flickered and went out, leaving them in complete darkness. The radio emitted a burst of static, followed by faint whispers that sent chills down their spines. "Try restarting it," Dylan urged, his voice shaky. Mark turned the key, but the engine wouldn't start. The air in the car grew cold, and the friends could feel an oppressive presence pressing in on them. Then out of nowhere, the convoy reappeared. The SUVs surrounded their car, their windows pitch black. No one got out, but the shadows inside seemed to shift, watching them. The whispers grew louder, incomprehensible but undeniably threatening. Sarah clutched Dylan's arm, tears streaming down her face. "What do they want?" she cried. The car suddenly roared back to life, the headlights flickering on. Mark didn't hesitate. He slammed on the gas, speeding down the highway. The SUVs stayed close behind, their headlights flickering eerily in the rearview mirror. "Don't stop!" Dylan yelled, his voice rising above the whispers that now filled the car. The convoy stayed with them for miles, their presence suffocating. But just as abruptly as they appeared, the SUVs vanished again, leaving the friends alone on the road. When they finally reached the main highway, they pulled into a gas station. Mark, Sarah, and Dylan sat in silence, too shaken to speak. When they told their story to the gas station attendant, his face went pale. "That road doesn't exist," he said, "and you're not the first to see them. Those SUVs, they're not from here." The friends left Texas the next morning, vowing never to return. But none of them could forget the convoy or the way it seemed to watch them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.